She was not awake anymore. She was alive, but she was not awake. She couldn't communicate with me. And I was holding her hand and I was drafting up the last I was drafting up contracts on my laptop.
Your greatest motivation for your business after you had lost your life savings was to provide financial support for your mom. And now you're in this room, the hospital room, last day with your mom, and you know she's going to die.
Yeah.
But yet you're working on your business.
Yes. I was really scared. I was really scared. And once you see the person you love most in this world, they're dying in front of you, and you see the color changing, you see the lips changing, you see the breathing changing, and you don't know what to do. I think in that moment, maybe I just wanted a distraction as well. Maybe I just wanted to feel that I was doing something that would make her proud.
That was 23-year-old Elin Molander. She grew up with just her mom in a small Swedish town. 2 years ago, in 2024, when she lost her mom to cancer, she also lost herself. It marked a new chapter in which she would ask herself a profound question: who am I? Welcome to the X Perspective podcast, where curiosity leads us to explore how environment and culture shape an individual's psychology. We ultimately aim to understand the human condition through the personal stories of our guests from diverse cultures around the world. I'm your host, Raj, and this is episode 26 of the X Perspective podcast. Now, I want you to picture for a moment a structure supported by 2 pillars. Each pillar helps define who you are. Together, they support your sense of identity. For Elin, one of those pillars was her mom. And when her mom passed away, the other pillar came crashing down too. At 21, her entire world crumbled. In this insightful episode, Elin shares how she now defines a successful life, the lessons she learned after losing her mom, and what enabled her to rebuild her world from the ground up and discover a new sense of identity. Now join me as we explore the perspective of our youngest guest yet. What was it like growing up as an only child with a single mom in a small Swedish town?
I think in Sweden it's quite common to be an only child, or people have less children in Sweden than normally here in Asia. So I think it was wonderful. At the same time, it was difficult because many times I feel like I wish that I would have someone else to be with as well. But still, I was very happy as an only child. My mother gave me a lot of love and a lot of care. But of course, we always have these standards in Sweden, and life was pretty simple.
What was your relationship like with your mom?
We were very close. Growing up, I didn't have too many friends. So I always turned to my mother whenever it was in regards of anything in life, whether it was school, I needed someone to play with as a child, or when I had questions about life, when I needed help with something. So she was always there for me, and we had a very close relationship.
How would you describe your mom's influence on your identity when you were an adolescent?
She had a lot of influence on me because I think that I struggled a lot when growing up. I'd been bullied in school, and growing up, this led to some unhappiness in my being when I was growing up and becoming in my early teenage years. And she helped me a lot with that. She helped me get through it. She helped me understand. And I think she was the strongest pillar of support. And she also was the one to support me in my decisions when I was moving through life, in terms of when I wanted to break free from school, or when I wanted to do something different that was out of the society's norms. Then she was there to support me, and she showed me that there was a different way of life. You didn't essentially have to follow the traditional ways of life in terms of what the society told you. And I've always felt like I didn't fit in into the society's norms. So she was the biggest pillar of support and shaping that identity of me being different and honoring that instead of trying to change me into being what she wanted me to be or maybe what she expected me to be growing up. And then realizing that this is not who Elin is going to be. This is not who I am going to be. So then she accepted it and helped me shape that version of myself.
In what ways did your mom and your Swedish cultural values shape your expectation as a daughter?
My mother always put her as a person. She always had high expectations for herself, I think, without actually saying it. And I also think that reflected onto me. So I think that she had high expectations on me. But I think I think that in general, both her and the society in Sweden, they have certain set of expectations. For example, you're supposed to finish school, you're supposed to get a degree, you're supposed to get a good job. Then eventually you're supposed to meet someone, start a family, get married, all of these things that society tells you to do. And I think this was originally what she expected from me as well. So this is what I grew up thinking that I was supposed to be, who I was supposed to be and who I was supposed to become. These are the footsteps that I eventually followed all through my life until I was about 14. And I realized that actually this is not the life that I want to live. But these were the expectations set on me. And I felt very scared of telling that. To my mother, for example, I was very scared of expressing that I want to live a different life. But when I finally did, she supported me a lot. So I didn't expect her support in that sense because the expectation I thought that she had on me, because she'd always put a lot of pressure on me. She said, Elin, you have to get good grades. You have to go to school, try to make friends, try to build a life for yourself, try to become independent, try to do all of these things that society and her expected me to do. But when we both realized, I think at the same time, that I wasn't really cut out for that kind of life, then the expectation changed, but the society's expectation were still there. So
that's always tough. Like your parent might understand where you're coming from because they understand you well, but then there's the society and how they judge you.
Yes, exactly.
And we'll get into what you did different in a bit, but I have another question for you. What beliefs about work, success, and independence did you learn from your mom?
I learned that I had to be independent. I learned that you have to do things by yourself and you have to be able to do things by yourself. She always wanted to do many things with her life, but due to certain circumstances, it wasn't always possible to do all of these big things that you see on TV or that you maybe aspire for, but she always found ways to do it no matter what. She taught me that no matter what you want to do, you can do it. You just have to find a way to do it.
Wow, that must be really nice, having such a role model in your life.
Yes, of course. I don't think that she expected, though, that these small lessons that she was teaching me on a day-to-day, that everything is possible, that it would turn me into something else than society was expecting, let's say.
Well, at 17, you decided to drop out of high school.
Yes.
To pursue a business career.
Yes.
How important was it to get your mom's approval for this decision?
It was very, very important because by the end of the day, I was not 18. So first of all, she actually had to sign the documents to let me drop out. But not only that, I always felt like I wanted her to be proud of me. And I felt that if I were to drop out and change society's perspective of me, maybe she wouldn't be proud anymore. And this was probably my biggest fear when I wanted to drop out of school, was that she wouldn't be proud anymore. And I didn't care too much about society's opinion in its whole, but I cared about her opinion and I cared, of course, about the people close to me. So it was very important for me that she approved. And first, she was very resilient. First, she said that, you should try to pursue this education first, and then, you can do what you want. But eventually, she came to realize that this is probably what's best for me right now. And if I want to change paths further down in life, I can do that. But she said that, okay, let's go for it, eventually.
So what is it that your mother knew about you that she understood that you needed to drop out of high school and pursue this business career?
My grades all through school was very good. She pushed me a lot to be good in school, but naturally I was quite lucky. I had a easy time going through school in that sense. But at the same time, she knew that I was being bullied in school since I was about 7 years old. So carrying that with me, moving up to high school for me was a fantastic experience. All of a sudden, I was starting to make friends and I was starting to developing bonds and I was starting to be happy. But at the same time, I think there was so much underlying stress and trauma from what I had been through growing up as a child and being bullied in school. So when I finally came to high school, I couldn't properly enjoy it. No matter that I enjoyed the education I was doing, I wasn't actually enjoying my days. I was feeling miserable to a point where I said, I don't want to get out of bed anymore. And I think that was, for my mother, that was the breaking point when she saw I was struggling, and she saw that I needed to do something else, because no matter how good I was or no matter what results I did, the grades I got, I wasn't happy. I was really miserable to the point where I got home every day and I would cry for hours without reason. But I think it was just all of these thoughts and things that had happened that had accumulated over the years. No matter how hard I tried to let them go, I couldn't. And I think this was replaying in my mind every time I went to school, was the fear of not being enough, or the fear of not doing enough, or the fear that these things would happen again. So I told her that I wasn't happy in school. So
what things would happen again?
For example, the bullying, that would come back. I always felt like I didn't belong. As I said, with my mother growing up, I didn't have many friends. So this was in school, for example, I didn't have many friends. So I had people I surrounded myself with, and I'm very grateful for that. But there was a lot of feeling that I was not part of the group. And I think this reflected on me going up in high school, because I didn't know. I was so used to not being part of the group. I was so used to being different. So once I got to high school and I was finally part of it, I was expecting myself to be so happy. I was like, oh, this is going to be the greatest moment of my life. But instead I was really miserable still, and I couldn't figure out why. So I found that maybe if I would choose a different path, I would find my happiness there instead of where I was right then.
Okay, so you approach your mom with the idea that you want to drop out of high school.
Yeah.
What expectations did she have of you if you were to drop out of high school?
So initially she wouldn't accept it at all, but eventually she came up with a set plan of expectations. She said that, first of all, the door is going to be locked in the daytime. Basically, she said that if you don't want to go to school, you have to work. You have to do something. You cannot just sit at home and do nothing with your life. You have to do something good with your life. Whether it's working, it's studying, it's going to the park and trying to figure out what you want to do, but you cannot just sit at home. So this was the biggest expectation that she had on me, that I would start doing something with my life. And I was doing things with my life. So it wasn't an issue, but it was more of a way for her to clarify that you can't just stay at home and be lazy. You got to do something.
Eventually at 19, you told me before that you lost all your life savings when you were trying to build your real estate business.
Yes.
Describe to me what that period looked like for you.
It was pure misery, I have to say. I had worked very hard growing up, and I started working very early on, and I started saving, and I started to build up some kind of base for myself, and I felt that I was in a good situation. And all of a sudden, all of this vanished, and I had built up some kind of ego as well. I built up some kind of ego that, okay, if I can do this and I have all of this, and somehow I got this attachment to this money and this, even though I wasn't super rich, but to the point where I was in a good position for my age. And I said, okay, so maybe this is now attached to my value. So once I lost all of this, I started to doubt my abilities, doubt that was I actually able to recover it, not only financially, but was I able to recover my ego from losing all of this? Because you're kind of in some high, in some state of, it's almost a feeling of being high, I think, when you feel that, okay, life is going well and I have this certain set of stability for myself and security. And when I lost that, I didn't only lose, it wasn't about the money, but more so my ego, my stability and my safety and my security in general.
And what about your identity?
Yeah, my identity as well. So I had so much so much of my identity attached to this, these savings and this, and all that I had done. And once I lost that, I felt like almost like I had done it for nothing. I felt like it was all these years that I've been trying to do something good for myself and trying to advance. It felt like it all vanished. And eventually I tried to rebuild it. But during this time of losing it, it was extremely difficult for me to understand who I was now, because I used to be that friend and that person, that daughter that could, because I lived in Spain at this time when I was 19, so I could fly home anytime, I could to see my family, I could go out with my friends and we could do things, and I was always the one that would try to say yes to everything. And all of a sudden, I found myself in the position where I couldn't be that same person. So it wasn't essentially about the money, but it was, I could no longer say yes to all these activities. And people started wondering, but I had too much pride in saying that I was losing this money and losing all of these opportunities, let's say. But I had too much ego to tell them what was going on, because I thought that they perceived me as that their perception of me was based off what I was able to provide sometimes. Or not provide, but what I was able to do. They knew that they could reach out to me and say, hey, let's go on this trip, or let's go do that, or let's go party, let's do that. And I could do all of these things. Doesn't mean I would pay for them, but meaning I could say yes to everything. And when I started saying no, I thought I was scared that they were gonna think that I was less of a friend.
When your business fell apart, what were you hoping in your heart that your mom would tell you?
So in my heart, because I think in my mind, I was hoping that she would say that, just let it go, you can breathe, don't worry. In my heart, I was hoping that she would support me, of course. But
so you were conflicted?
I was conflicted. I was very conflicted because I was so exhausted because I took off on this venture, and eventually I got played by various people and lost everything that I had an attachment to, materialistic attachment, let's say. But it was a big hit for me. So
let me ask you that question again. If you could only decide on one thing, whether you wanted your mom to tell you, okay, you know what, you're going through a lot of stress, just drop your business, or keep pursuing it, which one of those two options would you have preferred at that time?
I would have preferred that she said, let's just drop it. You can drop it.
Why would you prefer that?
Because I was so exhausted. I was so exhausted and so tired, because when I lost everything financially, I tried so hard to push myself to make it happen again. But it took time. It didn't come over a day or a week or a month. And I was tired because I was pushing every day. I was pushing to the limits where I would skip out on a meal to put these 5 extra euros that I could save from skipping a meal into the ad spend on my marketing, for example. And I would sleep in my car so that some nights when I had to go far, so that I would save on gas, for example, just to save my business. So when I had done that for a week, I said, okay, I can do this. 2 weeks, okay, I can do this. A month, I can do this. 2 months, I can do this. But once I finally, after 3-4 months, told my mother the situation, I was so exhausted because things were eventually slowly moving, but they were not moving fast enough for me to be able to try to save my business. I needed it to happen now. I was really scraping by to the point where I know, I looked at, okay, if I only eat 1 banana instead of 2 bananas, is this going to help?
All I can say is, wow. You had quite the work ethic, and I can understand why you felt exhausted.
Yeah.
You were trying so hard and you weren't seeing the results. you needed a break. But why did you continue to pursue your business when all you wanted to do, you told me before, you wanted to file for bankruptcy?
Yeah.
Why did you keep going though?
I kept going. There were various reasons. I think something inside of me, first of all, something inside of me told me that I can't let go just yet. I am not ready to let go of this version of me that's been successful. I'm not ready to leave that because now I'll be seen as a failure if I let go, right?
But you weren't successful at that time. At that time, you had lost all your savings.
Yeah, but what I mean exactly, having built up those savings, for example, that if I would be here and then I would let go and eventually stop at zero again, I would start over all again, and I didn't want to do that. But I think the biggest reason was my mother, of course. Both that I knew that she wasn't in the best shape. We didn't talk about it, but she was sick, and we didn't essentially talk about it very much. But I knew that there was something going on, so I wanted to be able to not only provide for myself, but to be able to also build a security in case something would happen. And then also when I went home to my mother, when things were actually falling apart, and I went home to my mother and I told her, I said, look, I don't have any money left. My business has completely failed, and I haven't been wanting to tell you. Actually, the business hasn't been failing, but I've been played by various different people, and I've lost all my money. My business is taking time to take off, and I don't know what to do. And she just looked at me, and I was crying and crying and crying, and I couldn't barely breathe. And I told her, I said, I don't know what to do. And she told me, she said, okay, I'm gonna lend you 6,000 euros. This was about 1.5 months of expenses for my business. She said, I'm gonna lend you 6,000 euros. If you can make it happen with this money, then I think you should go for it. You need to give one last push. But if you don't make it happen, you go back, you become a waitress, you start studying, you do whatever, but then you have to start from zero. I'm sorry. And this was the push that I eventually needed. The last push, let's say, because eventually things started to take off from there. But it was really that moment that saved me, because at that point when I flew home and I was in the airplane, I was repeating in my head, what should I say to her? What should I say to her? And when I got home and I thought, I wanted her to tell me, it's okay, just breathe, give up, it's okay. But the fact that she pushed me was my main motivation to keep going.
When your business became successful, it was growing rapidly in 2023 and 2024. What was happening to your mom's health?
So in 2023, my business finally started taking off after that, and it was growing and growing. So I had a real estate business, and in the real estate business, so when it was taking off and we were growing and growing, and I was opening another office, and I was having an all-time high on my business. I was closing more deals. We were hiring more people. I was finally starting to have a bigger team. And also I was starting to look at opening offices in different areas in different islands. So this was based in an island. And one day I got the call from my mother saying that we need to talk. And I remember that exact day because I was on the highway and she called me. I picked up. Not supposed to pick up on the highway, but anyways.
Breaking all the rules.
Breaking all the rules. I picked up the call, and I just been signing a deal. So when I was feeling the euphoria and the dopamine, and I was feeling like, oh, this is great, and I was about to fly over to another island to look at a commercial space for another office, and I was about to meet with the team that I had planned to have over there.
This is in Spain.
This is in Spain, exactly. And my mama, they calls me on the highway, and she said, we need to talk. So I stopped my car on the highway because I know that she never tells me that. She never tells me that we need to talk. I knew that something has happened, and she insisted. She said, no, we can wait. I said, no, we're not going to wait. I stopped my car on the side of the highway. And she told me that she had got back test results. She'd been struggling for a while. And I knew that she applied for help 1.5, 2 years earlier. But it took time. There was waiting times and so on. And she told me that they have detected that she had a quite aggressive cancer, blood cancer. So, and in that moment, my world just fell apart from having this perception of everything is going great and life is advancing and wow, and the business is booming and everything is going forward, to one day to another hearing that, oh, I have cancer. And she told me that we're just going to have this conversation one time. She said, after this one time, we will never, ever again have this conversation. But she said, this might go very well. This will go very well, she told me. She said, this will go very well, but there is a tiny, tiny risk that I might not make it. And I don't ever want to talk about it again. I want you to live your life. I want you to move on like everything is normal, because everything will go well, she told me. But yeah, in that moment, everything was falling apart. And I decided to book a flight to go and see her and to be there with her for a few days at least. So I cleared my schedules and went there the next day.
But her wish was for you to continue with your business instead of spending time with her while she was sick?
Yeah, her wish was for me to continue with my business, to continue with my life, because she was mentally set that everything was going to be fine. And she wanted us all. I think also she was telling that to me because she didn't want me to worry. Because if I would give up my business and I would give up everything that was going on around, and then she was going to come out of there, then I would have given up everything that I had worked for. This was what she told me, that I would have given up everything that I had worked for to be there next to her. But for what? If she would be fine, and then I would have to start over all again. And not only that, because my business was booming, I would be able to provide a life for her that maybe help her with a life that she actually deserved. The life that she wanted to. She wanted to travel. She wanted to be free. She wanted to come live in Spain. She wanted to do all of these things. And the only way I knew how to be able to help her with that was to continue my business. So that's what she wanted for me.
Why did you feel like it was your responsibility to provide this life for your mom?
It wasn't my responsibility at all, but I feel like I had a depth of gratitude to her, because she had done everything she could for me. She had been the one that supported me when I wanted to drop out of school, when I wanted to move abroad, when I wanted to pursue business. She was the one telling me, go do it, go do it, go do it. So I felt like, now that I knew that she was so sick, if she was going to get out of it, of course there was always a thought but if she was going to get out of it, or when she was going to get out of it, I wanted her not to have to worry. And I knew that the speed my business was taking off, if I can continue this, if I can continue to push myself through this, then I will be able to help her do these things. It isn't maybe immense things, but it's things like, oh, let's go travel there, or let's make sure that we've got this, but there are things that I wanted to do for her just because she had done so much for me. It was never that she asked me for anything, but more so she had done so much for me. I wanted to do something for her.
It sounds like to me you really loved her.
Yes, very much.
Now tell me about the final day you spent with your mom at the hospital.
Yeah.
What was that like? And that was in June 2024.
Yes. She was not awake anymore. She was alive, but she was not awake. She couldn't communicate with me. And I was holding her hand and I was drafting up contracts on my laptop.
You were working while you were holding your mom's hand?
Yeah. She was dying next to me, and I knew that probably we only have a day left or so. But the work pressure kept coming, and this is what she told me she wanted me to do. So I felt like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I felt horrible, but the nurses said at the same time, they said there's nothing more we can do, and she's not going to respond to you. So I kept talking to her, and I was holding her hand, and I kept talking to her while I was drafting the contract, talking about our life and so on. But because I think I was scared that if I wouldn't do these things, that I would not only lose her, but I would fail my business too. I would fail my clients, and I would fail my reputation. I felt like I was losing the grip of everything. Not only I was losing the grip of my mother, but I was losing the grip in that moment of the business too. So I said, okay, if I can just control these few things, then.
Earlier you said your greatest motivation for your business after you had lost your life savings was to provide financial support for your mom. And now you're in this room, the hospital room, last day with your mom, and you know she's going to die.
Yeah.
But yet you're working on your business.
Yes, because I was scared that I don't actually know why, but I think it was also the fact that I was too scared to I was really scared. I was really scared, and once you see the person you love most in this world, they stop they s- they're dying in front of you, and you see the color changing, you see the lips changing, you see the breathing changing, and you don't know what to do. I think I just in that moment, maybe I just wanted a distraction as well. Maybe I just wanted to feel that I was doing something that would make her proud. Because by the end of the day, I kept talking and talking, but by the end of the day, I didn't know what to say anymore because they said, "Oh, you can talk to her." But what what can I say? Even though you have a lifetime together of memories, but there are still moments when there are no words to say. What do you say to a person that cannot reply to you, that is going to die? What do you say to them? And so I said, okay, I know that I can do something for myself, because that was then. It was one of the last things she told me um, was that you've always made me proud, and you will always make me proud in the future as well. So I just wanted to make sure. She said, I've kept fighting all these months because I wanted to make sure that you would be fine, that you would be able to take care of yourself. So when she knew that, she said that now I know that I'm ready to let go. And then taking this that she told me just a few hours earlier, I was like, okay, so now I have to take care of myself, right? So taking care of myself is essentially taking care of my business too.
Okay. And now I want to jump into months after your mom passed away.
Yeah.
Your business was thriving, but you stopped.
Yes.
Why did you quit your business?
So my business was booming, but when my mother passed away, I felt like the world stopped. But I still kept pushing myself on my business. I still every day I kept working on it like nothing had changed. And my team as well. I had people working with me in my team, and the same. I kept pushing that we were gonna move on like normal. But I was falling apart. I felt like all this reason I had of continuing disappeared. My purpose of scaling this business, because the business was fine as it was, it didn't need scaling. My purpose was that I wanted to be successful for her, and I wanted to be able to give us a good future. Once my purpose disappeared, I was questioning myself why I was doing it. Because to be honest, scaling the real estate business made me quite miserable. I wasn't always super happy. I was happy in the rush, in the dopamine, in scaling the business, but I wasn't happy in the day to day. I got home and I lived in this beautiful apartment. I drove a car I really enjoyed. I had a really good life for myself, but I drove this car to my home and I parked outside and I walked up, and I lived by the sea. I loved the sea. And I just sat down and I couldn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the sound of the waves anymore. I didn't enjoy anything. And so I thought to myself, okay, so what am I doing all this for? And I kept getting these messages on my phone, and people kept calling me. My clients kept calling me, and the team kept calling me, and to a point where I just wanted to throw my phone in the sea, and I just wanted to disappear. I said, what have I built all this for if the person that I want her to see that I have built this and that I have become successful, and now that she's not here to see it, why am I doing it?
So when did you decide to quit?
I decided internally, I decided actually the moment that just after my mother died internally. But it wasn't a firm decision, but it was more of a thought that I should let this go. The contract I had drafted while holding her hand, the client eventually did not pay me. And that was such a tick for me. It was like a trigger to a gun. And it wasn't about the money or that I did it. It was just that I put my heart into my work. That's why eventually I was able to grow the company, because people saw that I put my heart and my passion and my values into my business, and this didn't get valued. I felt betrayed by this client. I felt betrayed, but on a personal level.
I can imagine.
And yes, so this was internally when I said, okay, maybe it's time to step down. But actually, after a few months, in October, I said to myself, I'm going to go to Thailand. And the reason was why I was going to Thailand was that I had promised her that I would take her when she got out of hospital. It was the original reason why I was going to Thailand. And then when she didn't get out, I said, okay, when I'm done with all this, when she has her gravestone, when she has everything set up, when I buried my mother, I'm going to go to Thailand and I'm going to do this trip because I need to do it. And on the first night I got to Thailand, and I was sitting with some random strangers I met on Facebook. We were sitting around a table and they were talking about their life in Thailand because they lived here in Thailand. And they said, oh, life here is so great. And they said that, oh, I felt so lost, but this place, it inspired me, changed my perspective of things, and people are so different. And in that very moment, I said, that's what I need. That's what I need. I need a new perspective. I need a new way of life. I need to find who I am, because I'm no longer a daughter. I will always be a daughter, but I do not want to identify myself and be the only identification mark of myself that I am the 21-year-old girl with a mother who passed in cancer. I want to find out who I really am, because that's the identity I put on myself when my mother passed, that all of a sudden I wasn't the daughter, but I was the daughter that with the mother that died.
And the entrepreneur who quit
exactly.
her job, right?
Of course. This was also a big identification mark of me, the entrepreneur, and being the young entrepreneur. And I had a lot of identification there. Like, it was my entire identity was these two pillars. These two pillars were the main identities of who I was. And I said to myself, when I heard these people talk about it, I said, I don't want to be maybe this entrepreneur anymore. I had this feeling inside of me that maybe I don't want to be that anymore. And I said in that moment, I have to go somewhere else. I have to try something different.
How much do you think the fact that you identified as a daughter and an entrepreneur was a product of your environment?
A lot. 100%. I mean, all of my environment was that. Growing up, I didn't have many friends. I had some friends, but I didn't have many friends. Identifying as a friend wasn't a strong identity for me. Identifying as the person who was studying when I dropped out wasn't either an identity for me. And for being a daughter was the strongest thing growing up. And eventually, as I turned into a teenager, being this young entrepreneur was my biggest identity. It was the biggest pillar of my identity, and something where I wore a lot of my pride. And I felt like this is who I am, and this is something that nobody can take away from me, because I felt that nobody could take these two pillars away from me.
Except for yourself.
Except for myself. And when one of these pillars came crashing down, it was this huge weight on top of the pillars. And once one of these pillars just were removed, my mother, me being a daughter, even though I'm still a daughter, I will always be a daughter, but it wasn't the same anymore. It felt like the house on top of the pillars was collapsing. And I think that's why I decided to completely remove the other pillar as well, of removing the image of being the entrepreneur and finding out what is beneath these two pillars, because I am more. So once I heard this conversation on the dinner, when I was talking with these people I never met, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I sent a message at a WhatsApp group with all of my team. And I said, hey guys, I have to tell you all that I'm going to close down my company. I'm going to close down the company. Don't worry, we will sort everything. I will not leave anyone just floating. I will make sure that all of you amazing people, that all of you are going to be able to either find somewhere else to be, or maybe take over the company or anything like that.
Now, what would you say to people who cannot understand why you would leave your successful business? What would you say to them?
I have had this quite a few times, actually, where I've had people come up to me and say that, hey, why did you leave? It was stupid, or it was unnecessary. But I think when life comes crashing down, and it's like an airplane, yeah? You take off and eventually it's some turbulence, but you take off and you're flying and you're flying and you're going up and eventually you're cruising, you're enjoying. But all of a sudden there's a malfunction in the engine and it starts crashing down. You do not know how to stop this crashing airplane. And if you find a way out of stopping this crashing airplane, my way out was to take a parachute and jump out of this airplane. I think I could say it like that. That was my lifeline. I felt like my life was crashing down, and I knew that I can take a parachute and I can jump out and I can rebuild it again because I've done it before.
The only way to save yourself in a situation is for you to leave it.
Yeah, because I knew that if I would have continued with my business, I would not have made it out because all I could see was darkness. And I felt like life was not worth living if all I did was dedicate myself to my business. So that's what I would say, that I would not have made it out if I continued with my business. Maybe I would have had more money in my bank. Maybe my name would have been bigger. Maybe the company would have been bigger. But I, as a person, wouldn't want to have continued that way.
When you say you wouldn't make it out, what do you mean?
I felt an immense darkness when my mother passed away, to the point where I tried to ask for help. Even I said, I have these thoughts that I don't want to live anymore. It became really, really dark. And I felt that I was stressing myself out because of my business and making it successful. So I think that's what I mean. I didn't want to live anymore, actually. And I felt like if I got rid of my business, and I needed to find Elin again. I needed to find who I am, and I needed to find what was going on beyond all of these identities that I had, or who I were. I needed to reinvent myself, because that's essentially what I did when dropping out of school, was reinventing myself. I reinvented myself from the student to the entrepreneur to this, to that.
What did losing your mom teach you about purpose?
Purpose can be reinvented as we go with life. I think that before she was my biggest purpose. Now I feel that my biggest purpose is to contribute, not only to be happy within myself, because that's one of my purposes, but I also think to contribute to the communities around me, to contribute to other people and create happiness for other people. And I think that losing her taught me that there's not only one purpose in life. And as we grow, our purpose needs sometimes to change for us to be able to evolve as well.
What did leaving your company teach you about identity?
It taught me that I can be more than just an entrepreneur, but it also taught me that I am already so much more than an entrepreneur. It taught me that there is so much more to life than being what the society sees as successful. That success isn't externally, it's internally. Whenever we feel happy with ourselves, that's when we can grow, and that's when we become successful. If we don't have that, we aren't successful. And that's what my identity was before that. I thought I was successful, but now I feel successful. And that's two different things. Because before I felt successfully externally, people were telling me I was doing great. People were telling me my business was thriving, and that's what it looked like. But internally, I was miserable. Internally, I was stressed. I was not happy. I wasn't enjoying my time. I wasn't seeing my friends. This isn't success, right? If you don't have time to have a coffee with your best friend, is that really success? I don't think so. So then I felt an external success, but I thought in my head that was the success that I was striving for.
Because that's what you were taught?
That's what I was taught. That's what society teaches you, right? You work hard, you make money, you create a good life, you have this, you have that. It's all about the materialistic and the external, and the approval of other people saying, oh, that's great, you're doing great, this is what I wanted to hear. But now I've realized that success is actually having the freedom and the time to sit down with the people I love, to be able to say that, oh, look, I have a lot of friends that travel, for example. Oh, you're going to Spain. I'm going to come see you in Spain. Or being in Bangkok, I mean, now I'm in India. So, for example, now I want to come see my friends in Bangkok. I can go see my friends in Bangkok. that is the actual success, because that's where the happiness lays, I think.
And how do you feel today?
Today, I feel, in terms of identity, I feel like I've changed a lot. I feel like I managed to get out of this darkness, and I've managed to find light and happiness, and I managed to find motivation, and I managed to find that there's so much beauty attached to life and attached to the things around me. So I feel really, really good today, I would say.
Ever since you left your business,
Yeah.
what have you discovered about yourself that you didn't know before?
I have discovered that I'm capable of so much more than I thought that's not related to business. I have discovered things like I'm able to learn languages. I'm able to learn to do different things. I'm more creative, way more creative than I thought. I have discovered that actually not in terms of religion, but I'm more spiritual. And that's something I always, being a business person, that always felt like something that wasn't aligned with who I was. So my spirituality has grown a lot, which for me it's incredible.
And what are you doing today?
I just moved away from Bangkok. I just moved to India, and I just live a very happy life, I would say. I decided to step away and from the business completely. And for the moment, I do not even work. I do some small projects here and there that brings me passion and brings me energy, and that I really enjoy. But I decided that I will spend more of my time being with the people that I care about, because that's something that I learned to not take for granted, that I maybe was taking for granted while building my business. But now I spend time with the people I care about. I try to learn new things. I try to grow spiritually. I try to be this new version of myself. Well, eventually I'm also noticing that my old identity is coming back when I'm happy. It's coming back when I'm happy. I see that now I can stronger identify myself with both being a daughter. I am again starting to see it as something beautiful instead of the darkness that it used to be.
In terms of being a daughter?
Yeah, the daughter.
What about as an entrepreneur?
As well. I started to get the passion for projects, because during 2 years now, I've had no passion for. I mean, I've enjoyed doing some small projects, but I've never felt that, oh, I want to go out and do this big project. I want to go out and work and do these big things. But as I'm getting happier and happier, this power within myself is building up again, like the drive that I want to get back out there.
What do you think has helped you get to that point? Is it a change in environment? Is it who you're meeting? What is it?
I think it's a mix of everything, a change in environment, but also I think it's a lot of work within myself. And I think moving to Thailand was for me a very strategic move, because it wasn't about moving far away, but it was the actual culture that I lived here and in Asia in general. People believes much more in the soul, and there's a lot more, I felt, understanding of the soul and who we are. So I've done a lot of work internally, and I think this is what's helped me a lot, that to talk to different people, to dare to talk, to go out and discover different perspectives, to travel, to try new things. All of these things, I think, helps us reinvent and understand ourselves, but also to heal ourselves. And meeting people again that makes things feel fun. Meeting all of these people around me that they have also gone through things, but they've understood who they are, and they've rebuilt their lives to something they're now happy with. And I think all of these things accumulated helps me a lot.
If your mom could see the life that you're creating today, what would she be most proud of?
I think she would be most proud of the fact that I got out of it in general, that I actually got out of this darkness, and that I'm happy, and that I have a life where I'm happy and thriving for myself, not for any other purpose, where I'm happy in myself and where I'm at. I think this is what she would be most proud of, because by the end of the day, she always told me, she said, Elin, I want you to be happy. So I think she would be most proud of that I'm actually happy.
am I? I believe it's one of the hardest questions we can ever ask ourselves. And if that's not difficult enough, here's another one. Who would I be without the external influences that have shaped me? These are the kind of questions that can challenge everything you think you know about yourself. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for Elin to begin asking herself these questions after losing her mom and leaving her thriving business. Yet she did. And I have to admit, I walked away from this conversation thinking, Elin is incredibly wise for her age. No matter how old you are, I want to leave you with these questions. Who or what defines you today? And how has that shaped the life you're living? Thanks so much for your attention and time. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting us on Patreon or buying us a Thai milk tea. You can visit the X Perspective podcast website for more information. There are also links in the description section. Your support helps us keep sharing meaningful stories. And please don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified whenever a new episode drops. Ever get to the end of the month and wonder where all your money went? Well, now there's a free app called Enough Spent. You open it, type what you spent, and you're done. Your coffee won't even get cold. It works in over 150 currencies, which is great if you're traveling, and it works offline too. No account needed, no sign up. If you've ever wanted to track your spending without dealing with some complicated finance app, search for Enough Spent on Google Play. And remember, every perspective creates a story. What's yours? See you in episode 27.